They call the meeting to order, the Finance Committee. Today is Wednesday, March 6th. And we have Dominic, Pat, Jen, Jerry, and Dave, and Bernie Chair. We have any citizens who wish to participate? Seeing none who wish to participate, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of November 7th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of November 7th.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any corrections? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So vote. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes for December 19th.
To make a motion to approve the minutes for December 19, 2018.
May I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any corrections that anyone prepared to make? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention.
I wasn't there either.
Thank you. And now I'll move on to our hearings. Open our hearings for the Finance Committee for the Springtown meeting. Our first participant, Ms. Slavin. And she has a deadline because she has a meeting tonight also starting at 7.
I didn't hear him as good as he talking to you.
Sandy, might I suggest, and it's up to you though, but take them with your petitioned article first. That may, the rest seems to be more housekeeping.
Okay, Sandy Slavin, co-chair CPC, and citizens, submitting a citizens article.
Brian Litchfield, co-chair of CPC. Has nothing to do with the citizens article.
Okay, you have the floor. What are you
Thank you.
attempting to do?
My intent was to make a change to the charter that allowed all CPA articles to be automatically be placed on the warrant. In the past, 3 articles submitted by a Wareham Housing Authority for affordable housing units were denied by the selectmen, majority of the selectmen, to be placed on the town warrant. 2016, 2017, and again in 2018. And it was extremely, I don't understand why 3 people can deny the people, the citizens of the town of Wareham at town meeting who put their money into CPA, the chance to hear about affordable housing units in Agawam. And that just became, I don't understand why 3 people could do that. It's their money. If you don't like it, speak on the floor toward the against or for an article, but I believe all CPA articles should be placed on the warrant automatically. They are reviewed, we bring in all the applicants, they're talked to, etc., so a lot of work goes into submitting, approving and submitting an article, and I don't think 3 people on the selectmen should deny our citizens their right to hear and vote on it independently. That's why this article was placed.
Dominic?
Evening, Sandy. Sandy, the way it's written now, the charter, again, the selectmen vote, that's the way it's written now. It has to be passed by the selectmen before it can be moved forward. That's the only hurdle.
Well, it has to be submitted by CPC,
After
yeah.
it's submitted, yes.
There is a selectmen's policy that say they control what goes on the warrant other than a citizen's article. Then they changed the charter in 2017, I think, that says the selectmen are the only ones that can place something on the article if it's not a citizen's article. And so, because they changed the charter and it's no longer a selectmen's policy, that's why I made this citizen's article. Did I answer your question? I don't think so.
Yes and no. Before the charter change, you said in 17, what was it, how was it then?
It was a selectmen's policy a selectman's policy that they can do control what goes on the town warrant. Only a policy.
Okay.
There was nothing specifically saying that in the town charter.
Okay. And to date, there's nothing in the town charter that says that?
Yes,
They put it in 17, that's what I wanted to know, yes. Did you read, do you have that handy to read that?
yes, here is this. Let me, I'll find it.
Okay, take your time.
Complete sentence is, the subjects submitted to the Board of Selectmen shall be placed on the warrant for the spring or fall town meeting by a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen pursuant to Section 10 of Chapter 39 of the General Laws.
Yes, that was the one that was approved in Article 12, Spring 2017 Town Meeting. Unfortunately, the only version of the town charter is a 2016, which does not include this update that was voted in the spring 2017.
It's not on the town website.
No, it's not, and I've been asking for it for a long, if anybody looks at citizens' participation, I became a pain trying to get an updated charter that has this included. And so Mr. Titlebaum did send it to me indicating that approved March 8th, 2018.
Has the town clerk received notification from Attorney General that they approved it?
I have no idea. Mr. Titlebaum was working this, and there was some, Mr. Slavin did some research on it. Maybe he can speak to that.
The articles you refer to that were not permitted on the warrant by the selectmen, were they regular articles or were they petitioned articles?
No, regular articles.
Regular articles?
2016, we asked for 4 units for $453,000. Fall of 2017, we asked for 6 units of $504,000. Fall of 2018, we asked for 6 units, $930,000. And the fall 2018 by CPC was denied because they didn't want to make the warrant any bigger than it was, because it was also a citizen's article, as the selectmen say, to bypass them, to put the units on as a citizen's article, and it was flawed.
I remember that, I remember that.
But the CPA article was denied because they didn't want to make the warrant any bigger than it is. They didn't want to add a page to it. Quote
Right, because
unquote.
the petitioned article, as I recall, was considered flawed.
Yes, it was flawed. But if they had allowed the CPA article to go in, the citizen would have pulled their petition article.
So irrespective of the subject matter you're referring to though, if CBC puts an article on the warrant currently, the selectmen have the option of whether or not they allow it on the warrant.
Correct.
You submit it for the warrant, they have that option.
Yes.
And what you're saying, what you're trying to accomplish here, is that if a CPC agrees that an expenditure of their funds is permissible, or
Yes.
allowable, acceptable, however you want to phrase that, then it should be, go to the town meeting without the selectmen's approval, because you are in control of those funds.
That is correct.
But it's a,
But it also allows the people at town meeting to decide whether or
Well,
not they
that's
want
what
to
I mean.
spend it. I mean,
That's
where
you're
we're
going there.
denying them the option to even consider it by refusing to place it on the warrant, and I don't think that's fair. They're all paying
it
their
is the town's
taxes.
money, you're right, it's the
No,
town's
it's
money.
the individual's money.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah, either way, whether the selectmen approve it or this charter change approves, the town meeting has the ultimate
They have the final
determination.
say. So
What
if you
you're trying
don't,
to do is eliminate the selectmen's approval, having a secondary to funds that you're in custody of.
that's right, because we don't hear from the selectmen. They don't attend our meetings. They ought to, I don't know what makes them deny. I mean, there were reasons given for these 3 denials, and I don't think I need to talk about them here, but it was one of those, somebody in 2016 could have had 4 units, and some elderly, low-income person could have been in a home by now, 4 homes, if this had been submitted to town meeting, because I don't think town meeting would deny them $453,000 to build 4 units.
I'm
Sandy,
not-
when you do a CPC article, do you use the town attorney to review it to make
All
sure
arti-
that?
All articles are submitted, and the town attorney and moderator review the articles. They're subject to last-minute attorney approval of those articles, which is different than a citizen's article.
Yeah, so if this were to be, it would be reviewed legally by,
They all are, I believe.
They always have been, they always have been,
But not petitioner articles.
but not a petition articles. This has not been.
What do other towns do?
I believe the answer was Wareham's unique, we don't care what other towns do, is when that question was asked. But the answer is most towns. Here's an example, I think it was Nantucket. One of the towns on the Cape or the islands, the selectmen refused to put in the CPC articles time after time after time. And so CPC kept submitting a citizen's article, a citizen's article, and citizen's article. So now, everything submitted by CPC is automatically placed on the warrant. It's the CPC knows the rules. We know what is allowed and not allowed under the guidelines of Community Preservation Act.
Well, that doesn't sound like that's why they knocked you
Can I,
down.
can I speak a little bit?
Very good.
It's got nothing to do with me, but, so when Wareham actually adopted it, that's how they adopted it, the same way the state written it. So the state wrote it so that the townspeople would have final say, no one in between. So CPC said, yes, it's an approved expenditure of that money, you can absolutely do that, and then it went before a town meeting and the town got the chance to vote on it. So that's how Wareham had originally adopted it.
But the only thing you're trying to accomplish is to eliminate the need to have the approval of the selectmen to put it on the warrant, to go before a town meeting. Because you have to go on the warrant no matter what.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that bringing in the comments made by the selectmen is going to in your best interest. But I would suggest that you certainly bring up the issue regarding of what other communities are doing and what would the original statute read.
Mm-hmm.
By way of having, that would imply the explanation from the selectmen, their own philosophy on it, to bring it up as to why they prefer to do it this way.
So this is what I did when I wrote this. I identified the charter articles section and subsection based on the spring 2017 article. I think they got the wrong subsection, but I can't do anything about it since the state has accepted the article as from 2017. Now, knowing that there's an Article 9, I think it is, that totally wipes away this section, totally wipes it away, because they're changing the date of the vote for town meeting to the 1st of May or something like that. So it could very well, this could very well be a useless exercise if in fact town meeting says, hey, we're gonna do away with the words in the charter.
What article is that number, Sandy?
Which one?
The one you're doing
I
now?
think it's Article 9 that talks about the change in the charter for making the election after town meeting.
I was just wanting to see how the selectmen voted on it.
Now, for this petition article, they failed to support it. I think it was 500 not to support this
So it's
petition
gotta be
article.
the 22 or 23 then, right?
No, mine is, the petition article is 23.
15.
Dominic, 15 is the one that says change the voting date to May after town meeting. Thank you, Claire. I knew it was 9 or 15, I got
Town
it.
meeting process.
15 is town meeting process.
But it says that this subsection B and C would
15,
totally
town
be
meeting process.
replaced.
Yes, they did. No, it's in,
Sure, I mean, these are the ones they didn't vote for.
selectmen do things a little differently, and Alan, can I interrupt you for a moment? On the article in particular, this particular article we're discussing, you voted in opposition. You don't follow, excuse me for all due respect, you don't follow Robert's rules, in that it must have a positive motion so we know you're a negative vote, because it indicates on this list that you approved it,
That's why I asked.
even though the motion may have been to disapprove.
Motion was not to recommend.
Not the correct, but the voting on that indicates you approved it, based on Robert's rules.
You see, when you look at this,
They
It's not
approve, do
good.
not recommend.
Well, the vote is do not recommend.
Vote to approve. That's what it is.
Okay, but this is one we're talking about right now,
Yes,
23.
yes.
thank you.
That's
All right,
not-
so that's an error, okay.
13 minutes.
Yeah.
That's not revoted.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions?
I personally think it's good to have as many reviews of where we're spending our money as possible. And I'm concerned that although CPA is a very active group in town, it does not get the exposure that the selectmen's meeting gets. And so as a consequence, most people don't follow CPA or CPC as carefully as they do the selectmen's meeting. I would prefer to see it go through the selectmen.
Yeah, but
It's a lot of money that you're spending here every year, and if it's well presented, I don't see why it
Totally understand.
shouldn't get approved.
We're not a chance to present, we don't have a chance to present it to the selectmen.
Bob,
before
I'm
they
in a
vote.
meeting, I'll call you back.
You normally do.
Not when they're not for it.
Excuse me?
We
Not
talk,
when they're not for the project.
we
whatever.
talk about it when they talk about favorable or not favorable, but we're not asked, we're not invited. Or were we invited?
Well, I think once,
Once.
the 16 one.
Would you say, suggesting is when they, in their agenda, when they're reviewing articles for the warrant, they don't ask the proposal
Right.
for hearing?
Right.
Sometimes they don't.
I think 16 was the only time they heard us. That was when everybody was in the room for the first one.
In 17 and 18, we didn't have a chance to talk about it. It was just denied for whatever, there was a variety of reason.
But, can I talk?
Certainly, of course.
But what Sandy's saying, you know, I kind of agree. You know, they're stopping it before the townspeople can vote on it. Now, I think that's an awful lot of power to take away from the towns. It's the townspeople's money. I mean, it doesn't appear that they're shutting it down because it's written wrong or they're just opposed to it. Well, now you're taking 3 people to oppose something that should be opposed by the whole town. It's kind of how am I seeing that the way you're seeing it? Like,
Let the
That's-
people vote, it's their money.
so, you know,
You are in care and custody of that fund, so are you not?
that's really taking the care, the selectmen are taking the care and custody away from them. They're voting it
We're bookkeepers.
before anyone else can.
All right, but how is CPC set up and how are the members, how do the members become members of CPC? They are
We-
appointed, is that
We
not
have-
correct?
We have 2 members at large, which are appointed by the selectmen. We have a representative from Open Space, voted by Open Space, a representative from Conservation Commission, voted by Conservation, Agawam, the Housing Authority, and Planning. Those 4 people come from the committee, they represent that portion of that business of the town. And was that,
They're
did
all
I miss,
appointed.
did
They're
I
all
miss
appointed,
somebody?
too.
There's 3 at large. There's 7 in total. 4 of them come from committees. 3 of them are controlled by the selectmen appointments.
And the committees themselves are appointed by,
Yeah, I believe
Their
everyone.
respective committees.
Yeah,
but the
But I mean, the
people who
committees
are on the
have appointed.
committees are also appointed by the selectmen.
correct.
Except
Or-
the planning board.
Except for the planning board, and that comes from the
That's selected.
moderator and the chair of that one and the chair of selectmen, and so it's not just the, yes.
The
the
appointing
select-
committee, it's.
Yes, appointing, I was looking for those words, but, yeah, the people on Housing Authority is voted on. It's a public vote. But Open Space and Concom are put on there by selectmen. And we could be not appointed by the selectmen because of opposition on CPC. Never mind, I won't go there. Yes.
So the question is, should you be an independent committee or not? Independent in the sense of you can,
We've always-
if you put forward an article, it automatically will go on to the warrant.
We've always considered ourselves independent because CPC controls the money, and only with approval of CPC committee and a signature of the co-chair and treasurer can the monies be released.
Now, on the committee, does it take a unanimous vote to recommend an article, or can there be, is it majority?
Majority. Not everybody has approved every one of the articles going forward, but there has to be a majority for them to be submitted to the selectmen for inclusion in the warrant. There are some times we've submitted articles and it's failed on town meeting floor, the chimney at the old barn, the old dance hall downtown.
Yeah, the town people have
So
voted for and
happens.
against, absolutely,
There are some
absolutely.
items that have been submitted because they fall within the guidelines of CPA, but the town meetings say, no, I don't want to spend the money on that project. That's their choice, but the selectmen aren't giving them that choice.
It's, can I just throw an idea in here? If there is a question about
Committee looking for
something that you
across the-
submitted,
The other side.
Okay,
and multi-site,
Why
744,
can't
up four.
it be written
so one more floor up.
No,
that
Have a building, across,
Oh,
back
another building,
all
oh,
around.
okay, great.
it wouldn't be up to just the selectmen whether or not that would be allowed? That it could be referred to discussion, a discussion committee or something, because we're giving that okay to not allow it to 5 people.
3, all they need is a majority.
Well, okay, a majority of 3 people. And I agree with you, Sandy, I think it's wrong. But in order to have that cap on it, I think there should be a place you would have to go, that you could appeal it. You know what I mean?
It would be handled the same way that a petitioned article would be handled, is that correct?
All petition articles, if you get the right thing, goes on.
Goes on,
Goes
With
on
the
whether or
exception
not
of
we
those-
say it or not.
It would,
Town council.
it would be reviewed by town council and moderator, which is not affordable to the petition articles.
All right,
It would
but
be treated exactly the same way as the rest of the articles. It would just go on the warrant and not be, and the selectmen will have a chance to say yea or nay, I'm for it or I'm against it, favorable and unfavorable. They
And
still
the
will have
finance
that,
committee also
And the
will.
finance committee will have their say on it.
all right.
I just want the town voters to have a say on it.
To at least be able to hear it.
So we don't even
Yeah.
have, the way it is now, Dave, we don't have a say. Selectmen
Right.
vote it down, forget it, right, we don't
Yeah,
have a
as
say.
long as they say no,
It's an awful lot of power.
that's it. It is too much power.
It's not like the money's coming out of the budget, you know, it's not.
Okay,
Sandy, just as an aside, when the committee votes on something for the authority, housing authority, and one of your members is from the housing authority, does that person abstain from the
Yes,
vote?
she does. Yes, she does.
Well, no, he has too, I was just.
Yes.
Bernie, you asked a question before, did the Attorney General approve the committee, the charter change?
it's
No one
it's only a
seems to answer
matter
that.
of, it's only a matter of paperwork in terms of, it either has come back and hasn't been, the charter has not been updated. We're not suggesting that the Attorney General will refuse or anything. It's just a matter of the protocols and the receiving approvals from the Attorney General.
Would the Attorney General turn it down, or they would just
Highly
stamp
unlikely.
it? Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Okay. That was you answered my question.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, our own attorney has previewed it for its legality, and then it just sends up. It's a functionary matter to do with approval, but
Okay.
sometimes there's controversy and someone appeals.
Okay, this is Article 23. I make a motion that we approve Article 23, which is the change for the Community Preservation Committee, so that they have the authority to place articles on the warrant.
I'll second that.
Do
Motion
we-
to approve is made and seconded.
Can I-
Any other concerns?
Do we have to do this right now?
No, we don't.
Because
You wanna-
I want to think about this,
Would you like to table?
yeah.
I'll take back the motion.
Okay, you want to take back, redirect your motion?
We'll table it for next week. We'll
Okay,
table it for another
when we
week.
do our votes on everything, okay. Sandy, why don't we move on, because you have a meeting to go
I have
to?
a 7 o'clock
Right,
conservation
there's
commission.
two others, and one is the Community Preservation Reserve Funds. You're transferring, as you do, you usually do, the balance, in that you use some paperwork for that, the amounts and the like.
The, spoke to Mr. Foster, I was looking at $900,000 dollars as expected 2020 CPA funds, and he suggested, I think, about $1 million. So we used as $1 million expected 2020 CPA funds between what the town collects and what the state matches, and used, and that was what we used for the 10% set aside of $100,000 for each reserve, and $50,000 for the admin.
Hey, could you give us the paperwork on that, please?
I will give you, I mean, this is my paperwork, I mean, it's just.
Yeah, if we
Well,
got,
if you just, we're gonna wanna print that in our booklet, of course. No, you don't have to, you can use a
You have the
typewriter.
article. You have the
It's
article.
all written in the
doll-
article, but
it's
the
all-
amounts aren't there, I think.
Yeah, the 100,000 for each one of the
I
reserves.
missed that then, yeah, my apologies. Right in front of me, of course.
Because yes, I have to put the amounts in as to what we're voting on, so.
Yeah.
I mean, but this
My
is my
apologies.
worksheet, so I'm not sharing.
18.
I was hanging on every word you were saying.
Ah. Okay.
And the other one you have is the
Anderson track.
field and track.
Yep. Do you want me to take it? You got
Take it.
Oh, that's what I'm saying, you
Yeah.
can leave it if you want.
I'm just, we didn't give them what they asked for.
Right, they actually had the, I believe it was the
Like-
track coach, was the, sort of the lead on this.
Mhm.
And they were actually, they sent us a really unusual request, and they had several different estimations for various different parts of the project included. So I asked for some further clarification, because it didn't make any sense to me. And they came back that they pretty much looking for everything. They wanted to tear it up, start all over again, to the tune of like $550,000 or something, which I thought was a little ridiculous for a track, but. So we talked it over, and we actually had them come back in. We counter-offered them with, I wanna say it was $175,000 at the time. And they pretty much turned us down. They said, no, thanks. Which I thought was, so I coerced them into saying, hey, listen, you know, something is better than nothing at this point, right? So we bumped the number all up to 200,000, to which they agreed, I think somewhat reluctantly, but. So what that's gonna give them is the ability to resurface the field. There's some sections of chain link fence out there, shot put area. They're gonna replace some of that. They're gonna set up some new gates or something so that people can't ride bicycles and motorcycles and things like that through. So they're gonna get something, but just not all of what they want.
Okay.
Do we have any idea how many people use the track? How big is the track team?
So that was a big sticking point for me, because they kept coming to me and they said, oh, it's a community, it's a community, it's a community, it's a community.
Oh,
I
but
said,
we're putting gates
whose
around
property
it.
is it on? I said, it's on the school's property. I said, as far as I'm concerned, you guys have deferred the maintenance on it. So it's sort of your responsibility at this point. But they don't have numbers. But I mean, I've been out there personally, and I know that there are a wide variety of people that use it. You know, walking, kids playing on it, you know, all kinds of, there's yoga classes out there on time, so.
But $200,000 for a place you can have yoga or walking seems extravagant, and this is only part of what the school is asking for. They're asking for $500,000 for this.
Well, and see, that's right.
Not just from you, but they're talking about $500,000 project
Right,
to upgrade that,
right.
and it just seems like a lot of money.
Well, they feel they need to replace the whole entire track, which I don't think is completely necessary at this point, where they can resurface it. It's gonna buy them probably another 7 years. So my thought is, you know, just get the resurfacing done, make it safe for the kids and, you know, townspeople to use.
But they were having problems, excuse me, they were having problems with one of the ends with the water problem.
Right.
It's, grade, Dave. One of the corners draws a lot of water when it gets wet, and I guess it kind of ruined the track of that area, so not only do they want to resurface it, they need to change the grading, that's what I heard.
Yeah, but that was never part of the original grant, believe it or not. It was fencing, they wanted to fence the whole entire thing.
I understand, but you can't resurface it if they're not gonna repair that water problem, it'll ruin it.
Right.
It makes no sense.
They were also looking for a building.
Well, sort of,
One
yes. Yeah, a storage container, basically.
Yeah, for equipment and stuff,
Yes.
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 What was the vote of your committee, the CPC, for this?
I wish I had my paperwork in front of me. Assuming that everybody showed up that night, I would say we at least have majority, so it was at least 4-0-0.
And do you get any assurances from the school that if this money is spent, they won't be back to you next year? Or
Well, so that was a stipulation, because we've already done this once. So this would be the second time. And they were supposed to have done all the maintenance up until now. But since they didn't do it, we were gonna make sure that that's gonna be an agreement that's written up and everybody, the whole thing was, well, we weren't here at the time. Well, we had no idea of that. So we're gonna make it known.
Who will sign for the school? The
We haven't figured that out yet,
superintendent, I would think, huh?
I would think. Yeah.
Superintendent has to say.
No, I think in your agreement that they've committed to subsidizing the balance of this project.
Right.
But they have no money.
Well, that was my thought behind it.
It's a minor detail, Jerry.
But I mean, not only that, they can raise the money. They can raise it through PTA, and I mean, just like they did for the Deacon's
From the
Playground.
town.
So, I mean, if they want it bad enough, they can find the money. And that's the way I looked at it, I mean, if they haven't done any of the maintenance.
Vacancies on this committee.
I actually came back at 150,000 originally, and everybody convinced me that 175 is a better number, but.
Are they actually going to be able to do work with this 200,000 on the track?
So, I don't have my packet in front of me, but as I recall, it was $115,000 or $16,000 to resurface the track in blue. It was like $8,000 cheaper to do it in red, which I didn't understand the difference in cost just by color, but whatever. Their original fence estimate was $53,000 for the whole surround and another, I want to say $7,000 for the part behind the shot put area. So if you take that 100 and say, you can call it 20,000 for resurfacing the track, it still leaves them with a good $80,000 to do, whether they do the fencing and the storage or just put it all into fencing. I mean, the option's still there at that point. They can pick and choose what's more important to them.
Now, you use the phrase resurface.
Correct.
Do you literally mean resurface or rebuild?
No, it seems to me that they basically go through, fill the cracks that are on it, put a new layer on top. It's sort of like a seal coating, but thicker, it seems. But there's still maintenance with the top coat, and that's why I thought that it would be better to take some baby steps and get them to at least take ownership of it for the next 7 years, prove that they can maintain it.
When would the work start on this?
I have no idea.
And I would hope the contract would be signed before the works with the superintendent.
I would agree. Yeah.
You know, the earliest they can even put it out to bid would be July 1st, because this is a fiscal year we're using.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it seems like it's an easy process because apparently there's really only one company locally that does this, and they're down in Bourne.
Any other questions? No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, Bernie, if it's possible, the CPC has a balance now. There's to use for 4 buckets. It'd be helpful if we saw the beginning and how the buckets are gonna be drained during the year, because now it's the abstract, I'm not.
Oh, that definitely will,
you know-
that's why I kept asking for the numbers. This is the numbers in the article that they're requesting for the rebalancing. But I think we would, if I understand what you're looking for, the total that they receive in the year and the
Well,
balance for the previous years.
Right, so we had a fiscal year ending June 30 of 2018. We ended it with a balance.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'd like to start with that.
Yes.
And then any activity that has occurred, and then any proposed, and then what will our balance be June 30, 2019? And then what's the anticipated revenue beginning the fiscal year we're talking about?
Anticipated,
And
yeah.
anticipating drawdowns in those buckets. We're thinking 24 months here. I gotta have something in front of me. I can't visualize this.
Oh, indeed, I agree with you. It's very nice to talk numbers in terms of line items or whatever, but it's much better to have the whole page in front of you
Yeah.
so you know the evolution that it's taken. Yeah. Okay, the next on our agenda is the articles recommended by the selectmen. One would be the Article 11, which is amend the zoning bylaw for, no, excuse me, that's gonna be
Ken, I think.
Ken, yes, he's gonna come up next week. The Charter Review Committee, delete it.
I have a comment about that.
Well, let's wait till our victim gets up here.
Evening,
Good evening, Mr. Slavin. Mr. Chairman, I should say, by all means.
this week, only if you want to go.
The Article 14 is deleting the Charter Review Committee. I mean, that's, practically every town has a Charter Review Committee, at least in New England, because we don't practice the form of government anyplace else. What is the philosophy behind having it reviewed? It's a 10th year anniversary, so to speak, so it's supposed to be meeting.
I abstain.
Can you relate what your members, though, wanted to do about this?
They felt that, if I paraphrase the wording, that most citizens don't have enough background information when it comes to the charter in order to figure out what actually works and doesn't work, because it's more involved than just a simple looking at what's listed out there, what's actually legal, what the actual Mass General law is, et cetera. And that's
Mr. Chairman, if I said to you, I look at it and I say, I don't see the upside to deleting it, but I do see a downside, would that be an accurate statement?
Again, you have to remember, I voted,
Abstain. That's the way I look at it.
I
I don't see an
ran
upside.
the Charter Review Committee the last time we had one.
It's taking
I
some,
was too.
You know that.
to me,
I was
to
on
me,
that
it's,
charter review committee.
to me, it's taking something away the citizens wanted. And even though you don't use something, doesn't mean it shouldn't be there.
Well, technically, you know, you can do a citizen's petition article anytime you want to review the charter.
But
I know,
you don't
but
have
this
to do that
actually
if it's
sets
here.
it up.
Well, it
You
sets it
know,
up once every 10 years with
Yeah.
a year ending in
Yeah.
9. But you can actually call for a charter review also.
You just said it all in a nutshell. Benefits versus non-benefit. There is no benefit to not having it.
There's no upside.
That's right.
The only problem we have right now, we've had 3 people apply, and I've been putting notices out for 5 months.
Yeah, to get someone on the committee, yeah, that's a tough thing, yeah.
It is tough. We're lucky we have what we're dealing with. I mean, I've got some excellent people here.
You're empty.
with the charter review committee, I was on that one. And I found it very interesting, and I learned a lot being on that committee, because it made you understand what the charter was all about, okay? Because most people don't know.
Most people haven't read it,
That's
let
right.
alone understand it.
So,
Most people
but
who
my
apply-
thought on this would be not to delete it. We could put a committee together and decide that there's nothing in there that we would really like to change.
But doesn't that
Start it
change
and
year to
end it
year?
and-
Life changes year to year, so would something that might affect the charter. Right now, there might not be anything to change.
Yeah. but
Next year could be
in-
totally different, you know, that's
Yeah,
something.
but that's different. We're talking every 10 years. What I'm trying to get through what my point is.
Okay,
That we do this every 10 years. And if this 10-year parcel doesn't have anything that we really want to change, we can, as a committee, decide that, and then we'll wait another 10 years and put it again. If you do it this way and you delete it, it ain't gonna be there.
It's not in the purview of the finance committee, to set up a committee.
Oh, indeed. No, I think she's made, that they would, maybe suggesting, instead of doing away with an alternative. However, it's not within our purview. to submit any changes. We just do yay or nay on
You
this.
really can't change the article. The article is
No.
simply to eliminate the charter review provision or not. That's all it is.
Mhm.
Now, any,
You can't reinvent the wheel here.
No, no.
right, so there is a committee that is
There is no,
appointed every 10 years to do this,
correct.
and should they decide to make a change, they have to bring it before the selectmen and the finance committee, as well as town meeting.
No, actually, they bring it before town meeting.
It's not,
Goes direct.
it's not discussed,
No, goes direct.
No,
it's not even discussed
no,
by the selectmen
no,
as a warrant article?
no. Once the selectmen select the committee members, that's it. It's hands off.
It doesn't go through as a warrant article?
It goes through as a warrant article submitted by the charter review committee.
Right, but
If you remember.
And then the townspeople
If you-
vote, that's
If you
all.
remember when we did this the last time, the first time we went through, we put an article in to change town meeting, from a town meeting to a mayor and town council. That got rejected substantially. Then we went ahead and did it, because we were set up for a year and a half. So when that was rejected at that town meeting, we came back to the next town meeting, and we put in, I think, 45 articles changing lots of areas of the charter. I think we got 13 or 14 out of those passed. But no, it doesn't go before the selectmen, because that's defeating the purpose of what it is. That group is independent doing this.
No, it's automatic.
Sorry, Clay, go
Goes
ahead.
on the warrant.
I don't think you're understanding Dave's question. Like any warrant article, once that article is written, then it would go on the warrant, and it would go before the selectmen for your vote, as to whether you support it or don't support it. It would come to the finance committee, they would make their recommendation, and then it goes to town meeting. I think that's what
We
Dave
do
is
that
trying
for
to
everything.
say.
No,
Well,
that's
you
what
do a
I,
recommendation, but there's no,
Oh, not allowed to change or anything, no.
no, but it does go just the same as a petition article would on the warrant, and it goes before the selectmen, and
Yeah,
Our-
appropriate reviews.
our moderator asks for the,
we'd have to go back, we should actually go back and pull and see if there was actually a recommendation at all from either one. Because technically, the finance committee would only make recommendations if it had a financial impact on the charter change.
We still vote
And some,
on it.
and some of those articles you didn't vote on, I know that for a fact.
but it would still be addressed as if it were a petition article.
Sort of, it's. The problem is that if the selectmen are selecting the people that are putting it in there, I don't believe the selectmen at that particular time when the mayor and town council came in, there was anything at all. But that was a very unusual time.
I
Yes,
just heard stories, that's all.
I will look up my notes on being on that committee.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
okay, can you
I
report
just
at our
wrote a
next meeting?
note. Well, I don't know if it'll be next meeting, but I will.
We're running out of time.
It's only 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Okay, the next issue we have is the town meeting process.
Right. Working with the moderator, we've been discussing how do we get things to work with more time, because we seem to condense everything in last minute, we don't get everything done cleanly, whatever. Also, the issue of having the election before town meeting, we have people possibly sitting up, representing articles that they had no input in at all, as selectmen in particular.
Indeed, yes.
So we decided that going back and forth there, we could basically add an extra 3 weeks to the time frame, maybe 4 altogether, and change these dates and have the election in May after town meeting. And this basically simplifies and solves, not everything, but solves a lot of issues. It's something we've been talking about back and forth for probably 3 or 4 years.
What this does also, it gives us a bigger window and the ability of getting our information together for our report also, so we're not rushed in trying to condense everything. And as Alan has alluded to, and someone being on a board only 2 or 3 weeks and then expected to have an explanation as to why. And I've encountered that a couple times, and it's very awkward that you, and sometimes will end up with a minority trying to give an explanation for what a 5-person committee has done. Any question regarding that issue?
Is there any downside to the change that you,
No. I mean, this is actually something that the Charter Review Committee back 10 years ago was looking at the second time around. That's how far back it goes.
Well, it goes back 10 years.
Just said that.
I know as far as I, as chairman of this committee is concerned, it would increase our flexibility and our time to study all these issues. If we, as it currently rests, if we want someone to come back with more information, it piggybacks onto what we're trying to get through to at the end of this month. We are trying to rush to get our report together into the printer.
It would also help things like the CPC themselves. They have a cutoff date for when articles or applications have to come in and everything. And they're having to approve stuff 3-4 months before the actual town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So they have problems as well. Capital planning has to have things in place a certain time frame before as well, as does the town administrator.
Yes, I was thinking that in particular.
So everything, and basically the state budgets really are never finalized till August. That's why it's fall town meeting has to make all the corrections that it does.
Mm.
Because you're making estimates, so you're probably off 1 to 3% on your budget numbers, depending on what the state does. So you're taking an educated guess all the time,
Yes.
instead of an accurate guess.
Any other questions on this issue? Being none, the other issue is the Littleton Drive. Is it Littleton Drive? I wonder. Wait a minute.
I think so.
Yes. I think your board decided they wanted more information on it. Was that the?
I think we held out because they're looking to, I think, build affordable housing on that or something.
Yes.
And I think that's,
Yeah, the redevelopment was considering that of
yeah,
the parcel.
I think that's coming from the redevelopment authority, actually. Maybe, it may be submitted through the selectmen, but I think that's the redevelopment authority article.
Mhm. So perhaps we'll ask Peter. What do you-
Sure, why not?
And I think the other one, I believe last night, you were looking for more information also on the grant easement from Mill Pond to go across town property.
Yeah, the town administrator is concerned, I think municipal maintenance possibly, about the easement and the liabilities to the town. What they'd like to do, in my understanding, is they would like to sit down with the owner of the property and work out something that's actually feasible. You know,
Because I had booked the engineer on the petition for next week.
yeah. I mean, what they want to do is, they don't want to build their own, septic system, et cetera. And they basically save money if they hook in, but the problem is that, which I think everybody should know the history by now, the diner, when Biff owned it, had a handshake agreement with the Kenyans who owned the company store and the nail factory. They basically have put a pump station, if you want to call it that, but a pump on the property by the company store, down below ground, obviously. And Biff was allowed to basically they ran a line for him right to that. And that line then basically pumped over to Tremont Nail Factory and then up over into, on Main Street a little farther up.
Mhm.
And that's how it worked. And then there was, I'm not sure if it was a disagreement, but something happened basically between the two parties, and he decided one night, whatever, to block the line and put
Fill
a
it with
sheet over the
concrete.
manhole cover, which proceeded to back up into the Mill Pond Diner, which proceeded to ruin all their food and everything else in the place.
Oh, gosh.
So it ended up in a lawsuit, back and forth, because there was an agreement that, Biff would just pay a small fee and whatever else. And of course, when the Kenyans sold the company store to the Assads, they inherited that, but they weren't happy with it. And what really happened was they wanted the diner to sell them that corner piece of property. And they were trying to force them, and adding a ridiculous dollar amount they wanted as a settlement. They went to court, it was a real mess. And also the white building of the nail factory, the 220 power was there to power the pump on the company store parking area, the company store land, and they were never paying the town. So we still have an outstanding bill from the Assads, never paying their electricity. So it's a major mess.
The more the story goes, the more.
I could write a book on this one.
Right.
Bottom line is you had to know Biff,
Wasn't Biff's fault?
no?
No. This was just Kenny, he's a good man, he just wanted to help out, and they had a handshake agreement.
Which wasn't unusual.
Not back then.
No.
So we're hesitant because the town's concerned about some liabilities with the easement and stuff. So the town would rather not see this one go through and sit down and work with them and see if we come up with something.
How often, do you know how often do they have to pump the diner? No.
Well, I don't know what his tight tank is, but I bet you he's pumping 2 or 3 times a week minimum. Depends how busy he is, obviously. Financially, it's a real drain.
Yeah, serve a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Go to the bathroom a lot,
Just wash dishes.
if you wash them.
Keep it clean.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it's, you like to do it, but at the same time, the town has to, look at its liabilities.
Indeed.
And our septic system, our guy has not indicated that.
They could do a septic, but if you have the GF guy come in, I believe he's gonna say it's quite expensive to do. And it's probably gonna have a limited, life. Clay will probably know better than I do, how long before you have to pump it again.
Yeah, you'd almost have to shut down just to dig up the parking lot to put it in. That wouldn't be code.
Oh, yeah. Always a possibility of moving Mill Pond Diner somewhere. Selling and moving.
It just looks like it'd be moved.
May not be a bad thing for him.
Anything else? No, thank you very much, Alan.
On my wife's petition, since I want to sleep at home tonight, sort of. The selectmen were not really in favor of it, not because of that, it's because you're basically taking one particular group and saying they don't have to go through the same process every other town department has to go through, a town committee. I don't know whether, and I can't answer because I'm not a lawyer, whether or not the Attorney General's office will even accept it. Because you're taking a basic, piece of charter that's in place and you're modifying for one group only, and that always creates a problem.
Mhm.
It's either gonna be all or none. And I think the only reason, and I'm not positive, but I think this came up with a policy of having to go before the selectmen and the finance committee before you could even apply for a CPC grant, was to make sure that the monies being expended were the best interest of the town. And we've had projects which we bought a lot of land and things, and we've kind of overdone some stuff. So when the selectmen decided on that policy that we did have the right to basically put articles in or not, the articles that at least I've been involved with, when I voted no, have been because they weren't a good investment for the town. And the issues with the housing authority was the articles were defective a couple times. They
Yeah.
would not have passed because they were written wrong. They had 2 articles, and one was, they thought, well, maybe the selectmen will put it in, so they had the housing authority write their own personal one, and the one the housing authority wrote would never have passed.
No.
Would have got through any scrutiny at all, that's really what happened. But I don't remember ever voting no on something that, was from my end, but I can't say every time they voted no. But they're supposed to look at the financial impact. There may be a project coming down like this particular one, you have that the housing authority, not the housing authority, but the redevelopment authority wants to do. With the amount of money you use for 4 to 6 units for the housing authority, you may be able to leverage that and have 30 or 40 units.
Mm.
So they're looking at saying, we have, say, $500,000, or we have $1 million. What's the best use of that money? It may not be this year, it may be next year, but you may want to hold that money back until you have it. We generate probably $800,000 to $900,000 a year of CPA funds between what people put in and what we generate with the percentages in that range. So they have a lot of money. They have to put a certain dollar amount into each account every year at the beginning. They have to allot by state law, and then it goes into those pockets.
Can I ask you a question about the housing authority? Is it it's governmental agency?
It's a state authority it's elected, and the state is supposed to fund and take care of it, because they've done a terrible job over the years with it. Part of the problem is that people who run the authority, that used to run it, would never do any work, basically to apply for grants and monies. So the things kept going downhill for years. Now with, I think, Mr. Politis in there and Jackie, who's the manager, they do a much better job getting grants and money and to upgrade the thing, but you're starting with a pretty weak, proposition.
So the books and records, are they available to the public?
Oh, well, they'd be available it's a state organization, so it's gonna be available.
Because when they ask us or the town for money, I don't know how much they have.
Well,
Yeah,
they really don't have.
I don't know, because I haven't seen anything, and out of a curiosity,
Yeah,
somebody.
they're not sitting with surplus money. They depend on what the state gives and what they have. Even with the rents and everything else, it's not like they have any extra funds. The question is really, can they some of these, the way the article is written, they would like to build these and keep them separate from the regular authority. I'm not sure they can do that. It's another question, that's part of the reasons you have questions on this. You know, people make assumptions, well, we can do this and we're gonna run it, but it's not part of our state, you know, housing unit. And I don't think you can do it.
Yeah, it sounds like a grand idea, but once you sit down and start talking about it, there's too many, I don't know, unanswered questions.
Yeah, and, you know, the articles come in and, you know, the town council will look at them, and if they have an issue, they'll bring it in, but if it's a citizen's article, town council does not tell a citizen what they can do with the article. That's not what they're allowed to do.
Hmm.
You know, I kinda wish it was the other way, actually, because we spend a lot of time, and then we find out it's, you know, defective, we get to town meeting, and we recommend pulling it because it's defective.
It's frustrating for us, because the citizen has good intentions of trying to do something, and they go down in flames because,
And I understand my wife's concern, you know, that, well, the citizens should be voting on this, but at the end of the day, you know, you have to make sure that the money's being used wisely. And even at the town meeting, and I probably get in trouble with like I usually do, a lot of times at town meeting, people don't have enough information to make a really qualified decision on what's in front of them. They may have a special interest group that wants a new walking trail somewhere out in West Wareham, or East Wareham, whatever. But is it a benefit to the town overall dollar-wise versus some other project that may be coming down the line, you know, a little later that you use that extra money for? So it has to be a much more involved decision.
I look at it as, the way it is, you get the big picture, and checks and balances.
Yeah.
It's a warrant article that, if it can go just as a warrant article, there's no checks and balances. And there's no, I don't think there's a big picture either.
Well, unfortunately, there isn't, because most people come to town meeting, and whatever they see in front of them, you know, they make decisions, and we make a lot of decisions with this rather than that. And my typical example is when I first got involved, just after I got involved, well, we bought the Tremont Nail facility. And that was definitely a mistake, because there was no 21E done on the property properly. There was no contract with the Kenyans to keep them there for any time period. And there was no analysis of the buildings, what it would cost to upgrade them or do anything with them. And I worked, I ended up being chair of the Tremont Nail Master Plan Committee, and I tried for 4 years to do some kind of development, and nobody would touch the property. So, I mean, that's just one, you know, several times we've bought stuff we shouldn't buy. So you really, when you're spending, you know, $1 million to $2 million at times, you really have to have severe checks and balances. But you can't buy stuff because you like to buy it.
I think it's important, and one of the things, very important, because the selectmen, town administrator have a broad overview of what's going on in town and things that are pending in town. And sometimes things that are pending in town can't become public knowledge.
Because there's too many variables. I can tell you right now that probably Mr. Sullivan has 4 or 5 potential projects that the Board of Selectmen really have no knowledge of. Because, you know, business people have come in, or people that were dealing with the properties have some ideas what they like to do, but until it becomes concrete, you can't sit and discuss it.
Right.
Because usually what happens is that whole thing blows up then. But there are projects.
indeed, and that's one of the issues here. There's so much going on in the background that, as you point out, could be better spent if held off for 2 or 3 more years, and it could be more
Have enough funds,
profitable.
'cause we have a limited, we have a pretty good fund with CPC, but it's not something that's, you know, it's unlimited. It is limited. You know, so you want to make sure, because if something, an opportunity comes up that's really, you know, if, say like the Buzzards Bay Coalition came up, we spent almost $500,000 on Wickets Island. We gave them some more money. We've had the money in place for that. That project for the town is a huge benefit, long-term. And that's the real question, it's gotta be long-term. Any project that has a short-term, you know, result, which makes everybody feel good for a year or two, and not gonna be good in 5 to 10 years, is a really bad investment. Because we don't have money to make mistakes. You know, we're no longer, you know, sitting there with a DOR ready to slam us at any minute like it was 10 years ago. But at the same time, we're level funded, you know, with our monies right now. So we've gotta work hard on these grants that we work for and everything else. We just got a second grant for the Elm Street for another $500,000. So we've gotta work out our difficulties with Makepeace on the dam and get going so we don't lose basically 2 $500,000 grants to fix the road.
Are we still in court with Makepeace?
I'm hoping to get that resolved. I don't care how it ends up, I just wanna resolve it,
Get it resolved so you
Yeah.
and move forward.
can go forward.
Because if you don't do something within a year and a half, you lose your grant.
And I understand the need for Makepeace, going to court for Makepeace. You need that piece of paper that finalizes the issues.
Yeah, I mean, when you have public funds, you can't spend public funds on private property. So, that's it, like I say, I understand, where the CPC feels they're being abused, that the stuff doesn't win. But, I would say 95% of the time when the selectmen vote no to put it on the warrant is because there's legitimate reasons. They're just, they're upset, and I understand why.
It's difficult when you feel you have the best of intentions of going forward, but as Jerry has pointed out, we need the checks and balances.
It's a hard decision, because, the people in town, they have the right to vote on stuff. I just wish we were able to get them better informed before they go to town meeting.
It's amazing we managed as well as we do.
Well, we've done very well the last 4 or 5 years, with the moderator and the changes and everything else, getting through town meeting in like 1 day instead of 5 or 6. But at the same time, we still don't have the people sitting in the pews with really the proper knowledge for a lot of times when they vote. I have a hard time when I watch people vote again with their heart rather than their head.
Yeah, but it's what it is.
I understand, but, I have a different outlook on that.
Yeah, that's why you got layers of review.
Yeah, well, it's like I say, what happens is you eliminate those layers.
No, you can't.
Mm. Have to be very careful about that. Well, thank you, Alan.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good night. Happy birthday, David.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, David, I didn't know that.
Today,
Yeah, today,
he's older.
you guys didn't buy him a cake or anything? God.
Public
I
funds.
didn't know anything about it. I'll watch your cake, Dave.
Make a phone call, bring it in.
At least a cupcake with a candle anyway.
Cupcake would have been good.
Had one at home.
Should have cut it in bits.
Have a good night. How you feeling?
Almost.
Okay, next on our agenda is the
20 years.
protocols for Degas Elementary at Minus Forest. We had voted at the last meeting to request of the school department detailed analysis of each. I had it written up and then I just trashed the whole thing because it was too complex. I'm just going to do a short paragraph on each issue and present it to the school committee, which is the Article 16 for the feasibility, and then for the chairman of the Degas Elementary at Minot Forest for the detail of year-to-date. Because if John hasn't bonded that out yet, there's no money in the account to pay for whatever invoices have been presented, so it'll be interesting to know, because they supposedly have said they have 1.4 on the last document we saw.
As expended.
Yes. And no one on the committee, of course, David and I were sitting there too, but no one asked for a detail of the fact that there was a lack of detail. I think we were preoccupied with the color of stone that we're going to be going into the walls versus how much money we're spending. So we'll ask them to come before us to present those two issues. In addition, considering they're asking for a slight increase in their budget, and when they were here before us with their budget, I had asked the superintendent what was the net gain from closing Minot. By the net gain, it was my hopes it would be the amount of money that we no longer have to expend for the maintenance of Minot itself, not including the teachers. I know they've been relocated, maintenance people and everything, and I agree with the philosophy in doing that. But how do they spend the 900 grand? I think they're going to have to keep it in the one sense of having it in their budget, but utilizing it in other ways that are not long-term, hiring people and the like, because when they open that building, they're going to have a cost of maintenance, irrespective of being brand new. There's still this heat, light, et cetera, that have to take place.
So the costs are gonna come back online.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah. And if they have to ask us for more monies over and above what their typical level of funding is, It's not gonna happen, we don't have the kind
Well,
of,
I would think they will be, because if they're level funded and they're going forward for a couple of years, you're gonna bump up by the cost of the building costs.
indeed, if they've obligated that 900 grand
Yeah.
to something yearly, hiring people, et cetera. So I think an adequate explanation is required. Also, if you saw in the newspapers, Tremont Nail, there seems to be someone interested in using the large building for making beer. Here, here, dilly dilly.
Illegally.
Also, I talked to Queen, the commentator from WCTV. She's gonna have me on the show. And that's about it. Also, the article that we have proposed for changing our terms, may I have a motion to place that on, ask that to be placed on the special town meeting warrant, please?
Motion.
Yes.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded. Any questions or comments?
I haven't really read it yet.
Yeah. Well, that, all it does really is change it to 9 years versus 6 years.
Yeah.
Everything else remains in place, being able to come back off a year, coming back.
Yeah.
You can have 3-year terms, however you want to do it. Appointing committee is the same, everything else remains the same. And just to reiterate the adjustments, where is it? Here it is. Joan, David, and Stuart are on their second term, and their terms expire June 19th, 2019. If this passes, it's on the special, so that'll take effect, and so they'll have the opportunity of 3 more years if they choose, if you choose. We have a vacancy with Ellis's resignation. His term expires June 2020. Mine does 2020. Jerry, you're also 2020. We all have given an extra 3 years. The third group, the most recent group, is Pat. You're 21.
I wish I was.
You expired January 21. Dominic's also in this year of June 19th.
Yeah, I got a letter, yeah.
And this year, but because of the mix-up, what we're going to do, and we've talked about it, is your term will actually expend to 6/21. And that dates then will begin recycling, and we'll keep track if anyone has to serve a vacated position. They will expire when that term expires. In this case, if it should fail with the adjustment, both Dominic and Glenn will have 2 extra years because we're adjusting the expiration time frames. If not, they still have more than 9 years to spend, because that'll still account for it. But I think that adjustment that we've agreed to make, and as chairman of the appointing committee, we're going to do that.
Makes sense.
But it has nothing to do with the article. It's just
Right.
information for everybody here. Next meeting date is the 13th, next Wednesday. We also have one a week from that, on the 20th. So the next 2
13th
Wednesdays.
And the 20, next 2 Wednesdays.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good.
Any comments?
I would just ask for Ellis's name to be taken off the distribution list, because he's on our email list, and
Is he still in your email?
I asked
Group?
him if he wanted to still be on there, and he said yes.
Okay. Whether you want to object? Mainly distribution, we're public information anyway.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's a good point, though, just so we understand.
Yeah, I did ask him.
When, just to make you aware, as the finance committee chairman, I'm on the building committee, as is David, and I'm gonna make several recommendations. One, that they don't seem to have any repository for all the documentation. Everything we do in the committee, everything is proposed, everything that shows in the overhead is all public and must be held in a particular location. So it's available to the public by appointment or however they want to handle it. And I don't see that being done. I just want to reaffirm affirmation that it is done. And, yeah, that there's a separation, because I've heard of them talking about what was initially excess funds in Article 16, the feasibility study, to apply it to the Article for the D of school. They can't do that. Those are two separate accounts. And the contract for PMA and Mount Vernon ended December 31st. And so that was the end of the feasibility study. We went on to the next phase, as they call it, is the schematic phase, which is actually designing the building.
Designing.
So I'm going to accept them by asking that those issues be resolved and that they take steps to make sure they keep track of properly.
Yeah, and maybe we can get a monthly or quarterly report on it and deal.
Well, that is, as I mentioned earlier,
Good thing.
what we've seen thus far is they put up on the overhead, and it's a line, a single line appropriation, then they have the projections and all that stuff. But no one questions what is in that line. Why in the month and a half since January 1, we spent 1.4 million. I would like to know where.
It's a lot of money.
Yes.
That information should be available.
Oh.
Absolutely.
I also have some smaller issues when they have working groups, as they're called, which they would determine the exterior view, the interior colors, et cetera, and some other programs, et cetera. And they're meeting at 3:30. Now, the only ones that can meet at 3:30 are the school department employees. Because I don't think the others, Nadia's an architect, Rhonda's architect, Bob, even Dave Maynard, who is the maintenance, director of maintenance here in town. 3:30 can be have direct consequences on their jobs if they tried to meet them. So I think they should be moved to 6 o'clock. We finally moved the meeting of the committee itself to 6. And we're currently resolving what the quorum is, because they had some 40 people on the distribution list. And how many of them, because they don't have a clerk to call it, like Ella says our clerk would call the roll and make sure it's part of the documentation, part of the meeting notes. Who's qualified to vote, things of that nature. And this is another one. We have to bring our own paperwork. If they do an 18, 24, 50-page presentation, you have to print your own out.
Really?
I don't think that's right. Paying them $90.4 million for the project. They can print them out. They got color printers and over there. Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Motion's made and seconded. Although, any questions? Anyone want to? All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
See you next Wednesday.
Thank you very much.
See you next
And